Started on. Right, I think that's 2 o'clock, so officially we're due to start at this stage. There's a number of people online, so on screen somewhere. So welcome everybody. Welcome to the 2023 AGM. Gosh, time is flying. I'm Dr. Linda Sheridan, and I'm the chair of Hertfordshire Community NHS Trust, which I'm very proud to be. Thank you for joining us today. I'm very boringly, I am going to look down at my notes regularly because otherwise I'll forget something, and there are various things I need to do and say in the course of this meeting. So firstly, let you know, here in head office at Howard Court in Welwyn Garden City, I am joined to my left by our Chief Executive, Elliot Howard-Jones, to my right by our Director of Finance, David Bacon, and both of them will be presenting during the course of this. I'm also joined in the room by Alison Wilcox, who is a member of our Shadow Board, who will be speaking during this meeting as well, and by a number of other members of the board. If you can't hear properly on this particular meeting, please let us know in the chat if there's any. Otherwise, we will continue with the agenda. So starting off with some housekeeping, followed by declarations of interest, etc. Then a chair's update, a video that we've done of HCT staff, our review of the year from Elliot, a short presentation, actually earlier than that, from Alison, the finance report, and finally there will be an opportunity for questions and answers for those joining us. So general housekeeping, this meeting is being recorded, and a link will be shared on our channels, presumably on the website, so that people can follow on what was said afterwards if necessary. To see our 2022-23 annual reports, accounts and minutes from today's AGM, and presumably the minutes from last year's AGM, please go to www.hct.nhs.uk/r-publications, which most of you probably can see because you're on the screen anyway. And then if you click through, you'll get to the various papers. These papers will be formally approved during today's AGM. Please try and keep your computers on mute during the course of the meeting. There will be opportunities to ask questions later when unmuting will be allowed. We will have, as I say, a question and answer session at the end, so please feel free during the meeting to post any questions you may have in meeting chat or at the end of the meeting, or you will have the opportunity to ask verbally as well. Any questions not addressed today, please send them through to hct.communications@nhs.net, and your email can then be directed to the correct person to respond to that and send you a response. So for the point of view of today, there are 3 pieces of formal business that we actually need to undertake. The first is to ask for a declaration of conflicts of interest from people attending the meeting. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest? Okay, around my table, I'm seeing lots of head shaking, so I think there aren't, so we will proceed on. The second item is the formal approval of the 2022 AGM minutes, which have been shared and are on the website. There is one item in that which I need to pass over to David Bacon on, which was, you've forgotten where it is now. Further audit work was stated to be required to be completed before the value for money opinion could be issued and this will be completed by the end of August, ready for formal submission on 22nd of September. And the auditors were satisfied at that time didn't have any material effect in the financial statement opinion issued. David, would you like to update on that?
Yeah, just to confirm that the audit work was completed, and at the audit committee on the 15th of September last year, the auditors did report back that there were no significant weaknesses in the arrangements that had been identified. So in terms of that outstanding matter, that was closed satisfactorily, and that piece of work was the piece that finally completed the audit work for last year.
Okay. Adding that to the AGM minutes that we already have, can I have an indication through a show of hands from my fellow board members and anyone else who was at the meeting last year that they agree the minutes? Use your virtual hands for those who are virtually here, and everybody else can use real hands. Yeah. Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, so with the final bit is that we formally adopt the Trust's annual report and accounts for the years 2022-23. Again, can I please ask fellow board members to show their agreement to this, again, with their virtual hands or their real hands? That looks to be pretty good. Thank you very much. In which case we have done the formal matters and now can move on to think about the wonderful trust we work for. This trust has a vision that we should provide outstanding services and in doing so develop healthier communities in the areas we serve. And we have some very important values. The values are that we be innovative, that we be caring, and that we be agile. And we'll go into a little bit more of that in a minute. HCT provides community services across Hertfordshire and West Essex, also across parts of the east of England and Bedfordshire, Luton and Milton Keynes, where we provide school-aged immunisation services. We are rated good by the Care Quality Commission, and we provide over 50 different clinical services for adults, children and young people. Quite a vast amount. We work in partnership with other organisations across the NHS, with social care, with local authorities in other respects, and with community and voluntary services. Our patients, families, carers and communities are at the very heart of our vision. Our aspiration is to ensure our communities are as healthy as possible and our services are outstanding and high quality. By maintaining a focus on our key strategic outcomes, it enables us to deliver improvements for our patients, the local population, our staff and our partners. At the end of it all, patients are at the heart of everything we do. Our vision is underpinned by our values, which reflect how our people need to operate in our health and social care system to ensure that we succeed. By being innovative, we will seek new ideas and adopt best practice to improve our services. By being caring, we act with kindness and consideration for others, not just for our patients, but for each other. By being agile, we deal with new situations quickly and successfully, and I think that's been demonstrated quite in recent years. Our 4 strategic objectives detail how we want to deliver outstanding quality and performance for our patients, service users and their families through working with our system partners, innovating continuously, improving and having well-trained, developed, supported and happy staff. There are too many examples to share, but here are some highlights. Through joined up local care, swift mobilisation at scale with working with partners during our mass vaccination programme, I'm delighted to say that we delivered over 2 million vaccinations across Herts and West Essex and Bedfordshire, Luton and Milton Keynes. At the peak, we had 18 vaccination centres up and running and a vast number of people working in those centres. We're focused on outstanding quality and performance, which is why I was delighted to see Elliot mentioned in the Health Service Journal's top 50 list of NHS CEOs nationally. In fact, he was ranked 17th of the top 20, which is a great achievement and great recognition for him of the wonderful work he's been doing within HCT. In addition to that, 77% of our staff recommend care at HCT, and that's a wonderful vote of confidence. We lead the way in delivering best value through innovation. There's lots of work I could share, but with limited time, I do want to highlight the creation of our innovative and diverse shadow board. And I'd like to ask Alison Wilcox, who is a member of the shadow board, to say a few words about the shadow board. Alison.
Thank you. So my name is Alison Wilcox and I'm an occupational therapist, and currently I work as a COVID-19 rehabilitation coordinator. I'm a member of the HCT Shadow Board, as Linda has said, and I've worked for HCT since 2008. So HCT's Shadow Board launched in October 2022, and everyone in the Trust was invited to apply. And having a Shadow Board in the NHS is trailblazing. So we're very proud to be part of something new and very innovative. We are a diverse group of staff spanning both clinical and corporate teams of the Community Trust and the NHS. We collectively have heaps of significant experience and expertise of working in the NHS and are very much frontline, so we are most definitely connected with our colleagues and our patients. We have lived experience of disability, long-term conditions, neurodiversity, being carers, and coming from Black, Asian or ethnically minoritized backgrounds. So we can really offer a wide perspective of items discussed by the Executive Board. The Shadow Board represents the Trust, patients and the population we serve through our diversity. The Shadow Board supports the Trust Work Programme by attendance at the Executive Board and Governance Committees, so that we can provide a check and challenge and consultation support at all levels of the Trust and its work. We do have our own Shadow Board meetings to discuss and inform on a range of issues, for example, supporting our BAME colleagues. I think we're all very good ambassadors to speak the truth from our colleagues and patients' voice, so this is heard at all levels and forums in HCT, Hertfordshire Community NHS Trust. The focus on our work, I feel, is not so much output, but outcomes, and that really resonates with me as a clinician. More so, are we making things better? Are we ensuring HCT values are lived? That HCT is a good place to work, such as getting things really right with our recruitment and retention policy of all of our staff and colleagues, and ensuring the focus on our work regards the equality and diversity agenda supports improvements. These are just some of the examples of where we need to get it right to make the tangible difference to our colleagues and, importantly, our patients. Thank you for the opportunity to give you a little bit more information about HCT's Shadow Board. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Alison, and we are very proud of our Shadow Board. They are a fantastic group of people who have contributed a lot to the Trust already. Continuing that theme of equality, diversity and inclusion, HCT is committed to building on our EDI work to continue to make the Trust a great place to work. As an example, we now have 4 staff networks. These are the Together We Can network, which is the Trust Disability and Long-Term Conditions network, the Proud to Be network. This is relaunched recently, and it is our LGBTQIA+ network for colleagues and allies of that group. And we have the CRED, C-R-E-D, Celebrating Racial Equality and Diversity network. And we also have our Staff Menopause network, following our accreditation as a menopause-friendly employer. Elliot will talk more about this when he speaks shortly. But first, we want to give you a flavour of just a fraction of the work and breadth of activities undertaken in the last 12 months. So we will move on to a short video of our staff.
Wanted to take a few seconds to thank you so much for all the wonderful work that you've done to help us through the COVID vaccination programme. I've visited all of the mass vaccination centres a few times, each always unannounced, and I was always struck not just by the professionalism, which was always there, but actually the enthusiasm and the camaraderie as well, whether it was just working with the public or bringing in dignitaries or whomever.
It's very important for anybody over 80. I'm 87. And I'm in Stevenage, and I think that people have been wonderful. It's been a good experience.
Thank you very much, and you should be rightly proud that you have helped large numbers of people across BLMK to live a healthier life. Thank you very much.
What is hospital at home? Care that is traditionally done in the hospital when in the comfort of your own home. Patient will be monitored through one or a combination of telephone calls, home visits, or remote monitoring kit. This kit may include special devices to monitor their heart rate and oxygen levels, temperature, and blood pressure, and any other devices that the patient may need to monitor their health. The results of this will go straight through to the nursing team. We also have doctors, pharmacists and therapists assigned to hospital at home. So, just like in a hospital ward, each day we discuss your care with a multidisciplinary team. And this means the patient receives constant care in their own home. By being at home, you can maintain your own independence, sleep in your own bed, be with your loved ones, and eat your own food. All things that can help you get better sooner.
Bit of an irritation on my right ankle, which I thought was a bite or something, and I thought, well, that it'll go away in our time, and it didn't go away. So I got an appointment with the nurse in our practice, and the nurse looked at it and said, well, I think you've got the start of an ulcer here.
Bob's story describes the power of immediate and necessary care. He came to the attention of the Tissue Viability Service purely by chance after 28 weeks of non-healing and was seen by the leg ulcer specialist nurse. He received the immediate and necessary care, including the application of mild compression once the red flags were eliminated. He attended the leg ulcer clinic, and after 1 week his ulcer had healed.
Bob's story is not an unusual scenario. Unfortunately, it's something that can happen quite often, is that patients don't get the care that they need at the right time, and it can have huge impacts for patients on their quality of life, and it has that burden for patients as well as healthcare services.
In the long run, it's going to save money and resource if you can get people's problems sorted quickly.
So we're here today to talk to you as line managers about apprenticeship opportunities that we have here in HCT.
Hello, my name is Jenny and I'm a third year podiatry apprenticeship student studying with Plymouth University. I worked in various different admin roles with the Hertfordshire Community Trust Podiatry Service, and it was quite early on into working with them that I knew I would ideally like to become a podiatrist myself.
Happy 75th birthday, NHS, from the Cardiac Rehab Team. Woo! Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to NHS. Happy birthday to you.
Hip hip.
Hooray!
Hip hip.
Hooray!
Hip hip.
Hooray!
Hello, my name's Suki. I work for Hertfordshire School Nursing Team. I love coming to work. I have a great work-life balance. I have a great team, and it just makes coming to work so enjoyable.
Hello, I'm Faye Wardley, Health Visitor. Welcome to the Hertfordshire Community Trust Health Visiting Service and the importance of your child's 2-year development review. We will assess and discuss all of these areas with you, and we will weigh and measure your child.
Carer can be difficult sometimes. You can't always do the things you want to do with your friends if you're helping to care for someone. Friends don't always understand this, and it can be quite stressful at times. I'm a young carer. I look after my dad who has fibromyalgia. It affects his mobility and can make him feel unwell. He has good days.
That was a fabulous gallop through all our well, probably not all our services, but a vast range of our services. There will be others who've done lots that have not been included in that. So thank you to everyone who took part, and thank you to everybody else who isn't included in that film. I'll hand over now to Elliot.
Thank you. And as you say, difficult to cover 50 services in one presentation, and actually The thing that strikes about community care in general is actually each service is delivered in a completely different way than another. So, community paediatrics is very different from paediatric audiology, which is very different to the hospital at home service, which is very different to the long COVID service. So very difficult to summarize all these things because they all feel like operate in 50 different ways for a very good reason to respond to patients. So I just wanted to pick up, as Linda had said, about our 4 objectives and just give a couple of highlights again of some areas over the last year. In terms of, we have 4 areas that we look at. One is outstanding quality and performance, joined up local care, being a great place to work, and making sure that we deliver best value through innovation. I think the first and the second, the outstanding quality and the performance and joined up local care, is so intertwined that I'm going to take both of those at the same time, because I think to give a couple of examples which have been mentioned already. One is the hospital at home, and I think we believe passionately within HCT that we should support more people at home. There's a greater opportunity to support people at home who would otherwise go into hospital, and it's been pointed out that enables their quicker recovery by being at home. So we make sure that we've got services, excellent services in place, the integrated care teams that provide 38,000 appointments across Hertfordshire every month. The hospital at home service, which has already been mentioned, but just to give some numbers around that, we now consistently have 100 patients at any one time sat on the hospital at home service out of a total bed base in the system of 650. So that's about 15% of all people, which 2 years ago was 0% of people sat at home on a hospital at home service. So that is an extraordinary change over the last couple of years. And that fits in with our urgent community response, which gets to people within 2 hours of a call to the service, which I think dramatically speeds up the response time within community service. And part of that, we then worked with partners, our community partners in other parts of West Essex, but also with the ambulance service, to make sure that we could intervene and stop ambulances being conveyed to hospital. So actually we could treat, again, more people at home. Having put the brilliant services in place that can support people at home, it was then important to stop what might happen as a system default of a family calling an ambulance and then getting transported to hospital anyway. So actually, if we can intervene and make sure that those ambulances support people and enable people to stay at home, that's really critical. But we do that in combination with our partners. On the children's side, we mentioned the public health nursing, and actually public health nursing, both the school nurses and the health visitors. And health visitors have a really critical part to play in our work around inequalities and our work around making sure that every child has the best start in life, because it's the only service in the NHS where every single patient, every single person of a certain age in the system gets seen. And that's a vital way of assessing the inequalities and the various different opportunities in those different groups. We've done an enormous amount of work around neurodiversity. I think I'd also say that we've got an enormous amount more to do in terms of that. But we've managed to reduce our waiting times for neurodiversity quite significantly over the last couple of years. And we want to work with our system partners to make sure, with Hertfordshire Partnership, with East and North Herts Trust, with the County Council, and with the voluntary sector, to make sure that we can provide a really clear, straightforward, quick assessment service for neurodiversity and get people supported and or treated in the best way that we possibly can for our neurodiverse population. And that needs to work. We need to have excellent services to do that, but we also need to work significantly across our partners to be able to do that. I think it's come out really clearly through the video that actually people recommend HCT as a place to receive care, 77%, and that comes from the support of our staff and making sure that people feel it's a great place to work. And actually our clinical strategy explicitly recognised that in order to be great clinically, you need to support staff. And so therefore it's one of our priorities, clinical strategy as well, because without that, staff, there's a measurable link between staff feeling happy and well provided at work and the quality of care that they then provide. We're really pleased to be a menopause friendly organisation, and regularly we get into discussions as an organisation about topics that we think aren't talked about enough, whether that be menopause, whether that be bereavement, whether that be EDI, and to really face into those discussions and recognise that all of our staff are people who need support with things that are going on outside of work as well as inside of work in order to be able to provide great care for our patients. So all of this links together from our perspective. In terms of best value through innovation, we need to make sure that we are effective, efficient, modern in the way that we approach life and then approach the efficiency of the organisation. And I wanted to really pick out as part of that the green strategy and our green plan, which is we've reached the end of the first year of 3 years. But even in the first year, and it's been brilliantly supported and led by Green Champions and the network that meets monthly, launching net zero training for all staff that's available for all staff. But some examples of what we've done in terms of LED lighting, we put in LED lighting across 6 sites, saving what I found was quite staggering 53 tons of CO2. It's amazing how much CO2 you can kick out, but also how much you can save as well by making some changes. And in 2022-23, as compared to the previous year, we've used 20% less electricity than we did in the previous year, which is a substantial change. We've installed solar panels on 5 of our trust sites, enabling us to generate our own electricity. But we've also recognised that through our procurement, through our supply chain, 75% of our carbon footprint comes from that supply chain. So we've introduced a minimum 10% social value weighting into all tenders that we do to make sure that we look at those wider impacts and try and source things locally where possible in order to reduce carbon footprint. I shall come on to what we're doing next year in a moment on the green plan when I come back to it. But I think all of those things are really significant. In terms of future direction, I think we want to continue with expanding services and making sure that services support people at home and they provide a really great start to life for children across the board, but also children who need specific and extra support from us and from statutory services and voluntary services overall. In terms of what we want to do around quality and performance this coming year, sorry, I've skipped on a bit too much. I shall do the key achievements before I move on to next year. In terms of 2022-23, we have an enormous number of awards and recognition for our staff, and they're all mentioned there. I won't read through each of them. Some of them are team efforts, very much team efforts. Some of them are efforts with partners, and a recognition for the ambulance stack work, an HSJ Digital Award for the ambulance stack work, working with our partners in the ambulance service and us. Some are individual brilliance and individual leadership as well, and from all parts of the organisation. And it's particularly great to see actually all parts of the organisation, both putting themselves forward for awards, but also being recognised for that as well. In terms of moving on to where we go in the future, all of that we want to continue and do more of in terms of the recognition and the awards, but also all of the things that we've mentioned in the video, and in terms of the high quality of services that we want to provide. We are going to have a focus over the next year or so in terms of making sure that we really focus on continuous quality improvement. and what that really means, both culturally in terms of people being able to speak up and comment about services, but also to make sure that we have the processes in place to support people to make changes in their services, to improve their services, and to make those and feel comfortable and confident to make those changes that are needed across their areas. We want to look at the and as part of that, we want to work further with our system of patients and public across the system, particularly around the involvement of the BCS, FE and voluntary sector, in order to gain their understanding of how services are provided, and really use their expertise as expert patients and expert representatives across the system to inform and change the way in which we provide services. I think there's a wealth of knowledge in provision in the voluntary sector and in terms of knowledge within the voluntary sector that we can tap into and really help develop our services. We'll continue to work with our partners to achieve much of that. As I said before, most of it can only be achieved in conjunction with our partners in any case. And we will continue to change and improve and listen, particularly, I think, many of the conversations at the Shadow Board are about making HCT a great place to work, and what that feels like and how that really makes sense between what we say as a board and what we say as an exec team, and what that feels like to people on the front line, and whether that makes sense, and how much that what we say as a board and what we try and put in place as a board feels real and reaches the front line. And sometimes it does, and sometimes I think we have to recognise it doesn't. And the really useful discussion there have been about why that might be the case and what we can do to make it different. And some of the really great stories that we've got about people struggling with visa applications, people struggling with mentoring as they come into the trust, which we've now put in the system to address, to see people at 30, 60 and 90 days after they join the trust, to enable them to be supported, I think are some of the really key things that come out of that. So it's not just about the policies, but it's about how the policies feel on the front line. In terms of a green plan and what we're doing in there after our spectacular first year, what we're going to do in our second year is to really focus around particularly a couple of things. One is about our travel, because we do a huge amount of travel as an organisation out to see patients. How do we make that as green as we possibly can? And how do we start to decarbonise heating? If we look at our carbon footprint, a lot of that is driven by our estate, together our estate and our travel. And how can we improve that, and how can we start to decarbonise that? In addition, we'll have campaigns to reduce waste of disposables and one-off use items, but we'll also look at further development and rollout of LED lighting, solar panels, EV charging points, and so on. All of that we're going to continue to do, but also monitor in a much more systematic way through a green dashboard, so we can check progress and understand that, and be much clearer out to the organisation in terms of the confident engagement strategy around that. I feel I've talked quickly and with quite a lot of detail about that, and certainly covered about 5% of what we're going to do, because I think when we got the report to the board, Linda, about the delivery plan for last year, it really took the delivery plan for 22-23 and said we're never going to do all of that, and then we reviewed it at the end of the year and went, oh crikey, we did most of that and more over and above it. So I think it's always difficult in a short period of time to cover all of the ground that we do, but hopefully gives a bit of a flavour of what we are as an organisation and where we're heading to next.
I think this year's plan looked equally unachievable, so we look forward to getting a report on it. Right, next in line, David is going to talk to us about finance.
Thank you, Linda, and good Thank you, Linda, and good afternoon, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm David Bacon, Director of Finance, and I will just take you through some of the financial numbers. I won't take you through every single one. You'll be glad to hear. Yes, in terms of 22-23, looking at the year in numbers, our turnover at 151 million was broadly the same as the previous year. You will see on one of the later slides that some of the non-recurrent COVID vaccination programme income that we received in the previous year has reduced and has been replaced by recurrent income. So that puts us in a good place going forward. Our financial outturn was 220,000 surplus. And in terms of our spend, the vast majority of our spend continues to be on the staff costs at £112 million. Staff costs as a percentage of our overall turnover is slightly higher than the NHS average. I think it works out at somewhere around sort of 70% or so. In terms of capital expenditure, we spent just over 5 million on capital related items. And I've put a brief analysis there across the estates, the IT equipment, new lease capitalisation and some of the environmental investments that we made last year. And our cash balances at 28.8 are slightly higher than the cash balances of the year before. We have a number of statutory duties, and the next slide lists those out and references where in the accounts, if you wanted to look at in detail, you could find more detail around those. And you'll see that of those 5 statutory duties, we achieved 4. The one we didn't achieve in full is the Better Payment Practice Code. NHS position at 87.1% is an improvement on the year before, but many will know that there was a cyber-related issue with one of our suppliers around our financial ledger systems in the summer of 22, which did mean for about 6 weeks we were unable to pay suppliers in full, and that caused us some problems and that has affected the Better Payment Practice Code. In terms of the first quarter of this year, we're currently running at 96.4% for numbers and 98.1% by value. So we have made some improvements since the end of the year, and we are compliant with that 95% requirement. I've put this slide up over the last 3 years in terms of the impact on COVID. I suspect this might well be the last time this slide appears, but you'll see our direct COVID expenditure at 6.7 million this year, 0.3 on COVID response, which is a reduction from the COVID response of last year of the previous financial year of 1.6 million, and our spend on the vaccination programme at 6.4 million, which is matched with income from commissioners, is significantly reduced from the 26 million pounds that we reported in the previous year. In terms of untaken annual leave, you can see how the amount of untaken annual leave increased during the first 2 years of the COVID phase and has reduced in the year to 22-23. There is the obvious typo that everyone was looking for. I've found it for you. And in terms of the centrally procured personal protective equipment, again, the number of items that we have received centrally have reduced, as has the value. And you can see from that as well, in 2021, the average cost of an item of PPE was just under 26 pence per item. That's now reduced to about 5 pence per item, which is the true example of market forces taking effect. The last 2 slides are the auditor's conclusions. So the audit of the accounts has been completed, and the auditors did report their opinion on the financial statements, giving a true and fair view, and that they've been properly prepared, and they meet the requirements of the NHS Act 2006. And as last year, and I picked up at the start of the meeting, the value for money work is still ongoing. We are expecting that to be completed by the end of August. And at the moment, the auditors have confirmed that they are not expecting that work to have any material effect on the opinion of the financial statements. And as we have done at the start of this meeting, we'll formally confirm that position both to our audit committee in September, to the trust board in public later on in the year, and then reconfirm that at the AGM next year. And that completes the overview of the finances. Back to you.
That's incredible. It's well ahead of time, maybe. Okay, it's now over to everybody else. So I don't know if I can't see the chat, but are there any questions in the chat already? Tell me. If not, those who wish to ask a question, please either raise your virtual hand or put something in the chat now. Ask some good awkward questions. We need to just challenge people, please. It's like someone.
Questions.
Right, see the chat and read it out.
Oh, just comments.
There is one question. How are we integrating heart failure?
Oh, who'd like to answer that?
Elizabeth's online. She's got her hand up.
Elizabeth, would you like to come in on integration of heart failure services? It looks like you would, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a really good question. We are really proud to be having an integrated heart failure service, which is going to involve us working with partners in the acute trusts at Lister and PAH, but also our colleagues in the hospices and also our colleagues in primary care. So we're hoping to provide a much better service for the patients based on some population health management work that we did, which will also be both a proactive service. So we'll be trying to look after heart failure patients and pick up deterioration early before they get to the stage where they need admission to hospital, but also a reactive service in terms of if they have been admitted, trying to discharge them early, and also working with our existing hospital at home service, which we're very pleased. We've got a brand new cardiologist from Lister joining us in August for some sessional time to put into hospital at home as well.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and for apologies for my being remiss. I didn't introduce Elizabeth. That was Elizabeth Kendrick, who is our medical director, answering that question. Now, do we get any more questions? That's letting everybody off too easily. No? Don't think I've got any questions because I think we've got most of the answers. I think that was another one. Oh, there's a question coming.
Do we as HCT consult the service users' feedback about care?
Who would like to talk about service user?
Service user. So I think there's we had a long discussion actually about whether it was involvement or engagement of patients that was the most important thing, and I think there was there's probably a scale of consulting, then engaging, and then involving patients in that order in terms of their care. I think consultation is the lowest point, which it's kind of for me suggests that people have already decided what's going to do, what's going to be done, and then we're going to ask people about whether there are any real problems with it. Engagement is slightly improved on that in terms of we will start to think more about how is it measured? Engagement is slightly more than that in terms of we'll have an earlier discussion and start to co-design that service. I think involvement is a completely different thing, and it's where we're heading to, which is my point with my point about the voluntary sector, and how we can engage interest groups who look at children's neurodiversity, look at cardiac cardiac rehab in the community, and we have a wealth. I think there are 10,000 organisations across Hertfordshire who we can engage with. I think the challenge for us is how we engage with a number of those organisations in order to really pick up on their expertise about what would be helpful in managing. Talked about heart failure or neurodiversity or what would be, and I think that's a much more where we're heading to, a much more engaging process that involves patients right from the start in terms of that. In terms of how we measure it, I think that's much more difficult, and I think it's the engagement and the involvement of those groups in each of our where we're looking at doing service redesign, where we're looking at making changes within within services, but also going out and saying to the public, where do you want us? Where do you think this service is not right for you? And how do we therefore provide it in a different way? So it's asking the question out. I'm not sure there's a measurable metric around that. I'm sure that there will be in time, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But I think if we do that wider engagement, have that real discussion with patients about what it is that's required out of services, then I think we'll really start to get some greater sense of how we need to change our services to respond.
I think what you're talking about is involvement at a population level, because hopefully good practice is that from our clinicians' point of view, they will involve their patients routinely anyway.
Yeah.
Discussions about their treatment and the management of whatever their condition is. Thank you.
Yeah, Sarah, you put in the chat about family,
Yeah, I mean, that's the standard friends and family questionnaire, is sort of like the standardised way of just saying whether or not people would recommend our service to family and friends, which we use both for staff as well as patients out there. But we're always really keen to get further feedback, and I'm looking at different ways of getting that feedback.
That, for those of you who don't know, was Sarah Brown, our Director of Nursing. Chief Nurse.
Fine.
That's okay. I'll just introduce you at this stage. Any further questions? No, that was very useful. Oh. Who's that?
Hi.
Okay. Yes.
Hi. Yes. Oh, hang on. Let's do my.
Is that you?
Yes, this is me. Hi.
Hi. Come on.
Hi. I just want to say a quick thank you. I am the Deputy Clinical Officer for SEN for Integrated Therapies and CAMS. And we had a 3-week-long QC Ofsted inspection of the system, really, of health, social care and education for the last 3 weeks, which ended on Friday. I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody who participated in it and provided, which felt like a mountain of evidence, which was requested. And really just my reflections upon the amazing services that we provide, despite the difficult circumstances that we're all working under. So yeah, just a really big shout out, and how proud I am to be working for this organisation, and also just to mention, I don't think Naomi's on the call, but the amazing amount of work that Naomi Mason is into gathering all the information, really beyond her scope for HCT as the health representative. It was really, a tough experience, but a really good experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. That was really helpful. I think there's been a tremendous number of people across HCT and the local authority have been involved in that inspection over the last while. It has been, as you rightly say, quite demanding of all their time. And I think it demonstrated some very good caring practice across both the health and social care and education sectors in this particular area. So thank you for highlighting that. That's really helpful. And thank you to everybody that was involved in that. Because that was a lot of work. We do respect that. Thank you. Okay, any other queries or comments at this stage? No? I think on that basis, if nobody's got anything to say, we will probably draw the meeting to a close. I think we can probably reasonably do that. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for your time this afternoon. Thank you for your interest in HCT. It's a wonderful organisation. Keep supporting us. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.